All right. Good morning, everyone. Today is our new class, writing for public relations. Um, so today we will continue our discussion of how to write new releases, and we have today new topics. We will talk about how to attribute quotes correctly. We will also talk about how to write objectively, and also we will discuss how to be neutral or neutrality. So these three topics will be discussed today. Um, we will also, uh, I don't know, we don't have time to look at the exercises because the exercises here in this chapter uh, have been answered at the end of the book. So go back to the end of the chapter, the end of the chapter, and you'll find the answers. But what I want you to do now is to pay attention to these three topics that I will discuss today. Okay, so go to page number 125. 125. Now here we have a section at the end of the page, which is titled Attribution of Quotes. So I want to read and then comment on these sentences. Often, public relations writers wish to present information and opinions that come from someone that they have interviewed. Other times, the statements may emerge from printed materials, or perhaps the public relation writers wants to suggest an appropriate comment by an organizational spokesperson. In whatever context, statements made by people need to be attributed to them. The most common attribution involves the past tense form of the verb to say, such as she said or they said. The attribution, also called a speech tag, is used not only with the direct quotes but also with paraphrases. So here there are some points that we should highlight. First of all, um, when you talk to someone and you want to say what that person said, you have to be very careful. Because if you say anything that is not true, you will be held responsible. So, how to avoid this? You can avoid it through quoting that person. So, if you quote that person, then you will be on the safe side. You have to use the exact words and you insert quotation marks so that you attribute these words or this or that sentence to the person that you interviewed. So quotation is important for you because this makes you very objective and makes your writing very truthful. Okay, so and how do you quote someone? As I said, you have to add inverted commas or quotation marks, and you have to use the verb said. For example, you talked to Mr. Salam, and Mr. Salam said that the students of public relation writing are very good. Now you have to quote this by saying, Mr. Salam said that, quote, etc. and etc. Or you can say, Mr. Salam, comma, quote, and you put the words that I said. So again, when you use quotation marks or inverted comma, it is for the purpose of attributing words to a person or to an organization. And this will put you in the safe side, and this will save you from being, sued or legally, persecuted. Now, if you go to the next page, which is 126, page 126, here we have some points that we have to take into account. Let me read at the beginning. 126. Conventional news style writing has a few guidelines on how to use quotations, informally called quotes, within the format of the news release. Now, these points, we will read them and we will highlight some of the things that we find interesting. The first point is a full sentence quote or the first sentence of multi-sentence quote should begin as a new paragraph. Now, in news releases, always begin with, or not always, but oftentimes begin with the quote, because this is the most important thing in news releases. So begin with a full sentence quote. So this will, save you and will put you in the right place. Attribution follows a brief full sentence quote. And this means that once you put the quote, you have to attribute this quote. And to say, for example, uh, quote, life is good, unquote, he said. Now, when you say he said, you attribute the quote to someone. And when you say he, we know that you are talking about someone, and someone that you mentioned before. Now, the third one, attribution may interrupt a longer sentence or multi sentence quote. Here, I cannot explain this by speaking, but I have to have a blackboard or whiteboard to explain it to you. But I'll try quickly, and if you don't get it, that's fine. Attribution may be interrupted a longer full sentence or multi sentence quote. For example, now you have a sentence. I will give you a sentence as a quote, and I will show you how I interrupt this sentence. Uh, Jordan is one of the best countries in the world. It is located uh, in the Middle East. Now, this is a complete sentence, okay? Now, if you want to interrupt this quote, you can say, quote, Jordan is the best country in the world, unquote, Mr. Salam said, comma, and quote, it is located at the heart of the Middle East, unquote, and then you finish the sentence. So simply you inserted or you add Mr. Salam in the middle of the sentence, okay, or you interrupt the sentence by adding the attribution. Who said that? Mr. Salam. The third example, or the fourth, sorry, attribution generally comes from or comes before partial quotes. Because if you have some partial quotes and you think that people may not like the quote that you are using in your news releases, make sure that you put the attribution at the beginning, because we want to know that you are not saying this, but someone else said it. For example, Donald Trump said, quote, Muslims are terrorists, unquote. Now, when you say Donald Trump here, because this is a partial quote, because he claimed that Muslims are terrorists, and you put them at the beginning because you want to say that Donald Trump said it, not me as the writer. So now you are distancing yourself. Partial quotes cannot lead into a full sentence quote. Here, what they mean by this is that partial. Okay, I will skip this. I'll skip this and I'll go to the next point. Paraphrases are appropriate substitutes for cumbersome and unimpressive quotes. Now, sometimes you have people who say boring, uninteresting, stuff, and you don't like to use the exact words that they use. So you try to paraphrase what they said and make it more interesting and more